So far, we discussed about Manohar Loya lastly and B.R. Ambedkar's political philosophy. And now, today, we will discuss about Jawaharlal Nehru and the contribution of J.P. Narayan. And as far as Jawaharlal Nehru's contributions were concerned, firstly, he belonged to Congress, International Congress. He was the head of the interim government in India. He was the first Prime Minister of India. He was the last serving Prime Minister of independent India, as well as he had many contributions prior to independence against the Britishers during British rule as well. He was the General Secretary of Congress and in 1928, and he served more than 5 times as the President of International Congress, perhaps the most by any person. He was the President, General Secretary of International Congress in 1928. Then in 1929, he became the President of it. And independence revolution जो है that was passed under his presidentialship at Lahore session. And from 1947 to 1964, he served as the prime minister, starting from interim government to democratically elected government of India. He is considered as the architect of the modern India, as well as the architect of Indian foreign policy. As you know, he has a significant and incredible role. He has a significant as well as incredible role as far as Indian foreign policy is concerned. As you know, when Panchsheel Agreement was signed between India and China, it was signed by Jawaharlal Nehru from India and Zhou Enlai from China in 1924. In 1954, 29th of April 1954, Panchsheel Agreement got signed, and Nehru was the representative from India. As well as during Cold War, Nehru too had a role, as he was one of the founding fathers of non-alignment movement. And as far his contributions were concerned, in the form of books, The Discovery of India, Glimpse of World History, a bunch of old letters, The Unity of India, Independence and After, India and the World, etc., as well as he has autobiography. He believed in various ideas like planned development, mixed economy, secularism, socialism, nation building, democracy, fundamental rights, scientific pattern of society. He was opposed to power sharing within the cabinet system, and he was the only first among equals. Democracy was deeper than voting as far as Nehru's vision was concerned. He was a believer of free and sovereign republic. And as far as he was also the founder editor of a newspaper, the founder editor of the newspaper, National Herald. And as far as Nehru's views regarding democracy were concerned, as he had a strong faith in man's wisdom, and he was having a strong faith in man's wisdom and his equality in almost all the spheres, all the areas of human life, Nehru considered democracy to be the best form of government. The best form of government or the best government is democracy, as it is providing man with wisdom and equality in almost all the spheres. And he always found himself safe as far as democracy is concerned. So he found himself always safe in democracy. According to him, democracy is tolerance. It means tolerance, not merely for those who agree with us, but also for those who do not agree with us. So tolerance both with those who support you and those who oppose you. That is real democracy. And he believed in this thing that the methods democracy contain methods like persuasion, discussion, demonstration, debate, argument, ultimate decision, and acceptance of that very decision if that too will be against you. But if that very decision is against you, but that very decision has came through discussions, deliberations, meetings, arguments, that is the real taste of democracy. You have to accept that decision. So he was the firm believer in these things, that democracy contains persuasion, demonstrations, debates, discussions, arguments, coming to the decision whether that decision will be in favor of you or against you. You have to accept that. That's a real taste of, real sign of democracy. He never oppose demonstrations, but he was having no support or no liking for violence. As far as his model of democracy is concerned, we can understand his model of democracy through following ways like democracy and individual freedom. Despite having democracy at the national level, there should be individual freedom as well. So his first vision regarding democracy was democracy with individual freedom. Because Jawaharlal Nehru was a firm believer of various ideas that were showing democratic signs, like he believed in individual freedom as the essential sign of democracy. For him, individual freedom means free being and a self-growing personality. Free being and a self-growing personality, that is individual freedom. And his democracy involves passion for individuals. So his democracy was involving the passion for individuals. In his various speeches, he he led before people or at international level or at national level during British India or prior or post 1947. His speeches, in his various speeches, he made a powerful case for individual freedom, freedom of thought. Through writings of speeches, they can express their will, they can show conscience. As far as objective resolution that Nehru presented in the Constituent Assembly in December 1946, and that got passed on 22nd of January 1947. And in that very objective resolution, he also led stress on securing rights for the people of free India. So he led stress on this very thing to have rights for the people of India. There should be freedom of thought, there should be freedom of faith, freedom of expression, freedom of worship, freedom of association, and freedom of action as well. So he was a firm believer in these things. So he was the firm believer, like J.S. Mill, individual liberty. But in one of the debates at the Indian Parliament, he remarked that in a democratic society, concept of individual freedom has to be balanced with social freedom and the relation of the individual with the social group. By this he means individual should not infringe on the freedom of other people, freedom of other individuals. He used to say that democracy will cease to exist. Democracy will cease to exist if individual is not assured freedom for the realization of human values. So he was a believer in this thing that individual freedom should be there, individual liberty should be there, but this does not mean that individual will infringe on the freedom, on the rights of other people. So in democracy, he firstly stressed on the individual freedom. He favored the democratic methods like debates, discussions, cooperation, freedom of thought, coming to the decision, whether that decision is against you, but he favored it because it is democratically decision making. And he had no faith in violence. He favored demonstrations, but not violence. And he felt always safe in democracy, and he considered democracy to be the best government. And as far as his second idea regarding democracy is concerned, that is representative democracy, representative government, जिसको हम कह सकते हैं. Representative government is also known as indirect democracy. Democracy implied representative democracy, which was related to popular sovereignty. Yeah, it can involve majoritarian rule. It can involve responsible political parties and responsible leaders as well. Democracy through representative government means people will participate in the foundation of the nation building, foundation of the government, help in the functioning of the government, and one that takes care of the people. So that is representative government, when people will participate in the nation building, in the formation of the government, in the functioning of the government. Which government? That will take care of those very people. As far as party democratic representative government is concerned, in democracy, he favored that there should not be a single political party. There should be number of parties. That is why he was in favor of the existence of multi-party system. He was in favor of multi-party system. He has a vision on internationalism as well. But as far as his internationalistic vision is concerned, that resembles quite clearly in his foreign policy. But before going to that, we are in his national level democratic values. He stated that democracy did not proper function of its own. Democracy खुद कोई काम ऐसे नहीं करती है. It could function through. As he favored representative democracy, he didn't favor direct democracy. तो इसीलिए उन्होंने ये कहा कि डेमोक्रेसी खुद काम नहीं करेगी, लेकिन ये काम करवाती है. किससे काम करवाती है? Through people. It functions through people, through their elected representatives, their political parties, and through leadership. And the success or failure of any democratic setup largely depend on the character and efficiency of its devoted and responsible leaders. The way your leaders are devoted, dedicated, democracy will prevail as successful. But the way your leaders are not dedicated, they are not efficient, they will be corrupt, they will be ineligible, they will be incapable, they will be misbehaving, they will not be performing their duties up to the standard, then democracy will definitely fail. Whether those leaders are in power, whether those are in opposition, but they will always have a role to play that very role through dedication. तो उनको डेडिकेटेड रोल प्ले करना है, एफिशिएंट रोल प्ले करना है, चाहे वो रूल कर रहे हो या अपोजिशन कर रहे हो, क्योंकि अपोजिशन का भी रोल रहता है. तो ये जो रोल रहता है, इसी में सक्सेस ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी छुपी हुई है. और डेमोक्रेसी खुद काम नहीं करती है, लेकिन थ्रू पीपल ये काम करती है. और जब ये कौन सी डेमोक्रेसी होगी? रिप्रेजेंटेटिव गवर्नमेंट या रिप्रेजेंटेटिव डेमोक्रेसी होगी. And as far as democracy is concerned, he ensured equality in democracy, and that equality is economic and social equality. Political equality will be there, right to vote will be there, but political equality is not sufficient without economic and social equality. That is why his vision of mixed economy and socialism, they were aiming at maintaining equality. And he was a socialist of Fabian type. Fabianism, one of the branches of socialism, Fabianism. So Nehru was a socialist of which type? Fabian type. To that extent, we can say he was very much closer to Taane. He was very much closer to Lasky. तो टाने और लास्की के बिल्कुल वो बड़ा क्लोज था जब हम नेहरू के सोशलिस्ट विजन की बात करते हैं, क्योंकि उसकी जो सोशलिज्म थी वो फैबिनिस्ट टाइप की थी. His idea of democracy was akin to socialism, spreading its wings to equality, चाहे वो economic equality हो या social equality. तो उसकी जो democratic vision थी, that was not merely a political equality, but that was aiming at socio-economic equality as well. और उसकी जो बुक है Glimpses of World History, उसमें वो लिखता है नेहरू, that democracy means equality and democracy can only flourish in equal society. Democracy means equality and it can flourish only in equal society. ऐसा वो कहाँ लिखता है? Glimpses of World History में. तो वहां वो एक बात बावर कराना चाहता है, it is in socialism that equality can only flourish. तो पहले उसने क्या बोला? Democracy means equality. डेमोक्रेसी बराबरी का नाम है एंड इट कैन फ्लोरिश ओनली इन इक्वल सोसाइटी. तो इक्वल सोसाइटी में डेमोक्रेसी जो है ये फ्लोरिश हो सकती है, इक्वलिटी फ्लोरिश हो सकती है, लेकिन ये जो इक्वल सोसाइटी है, इट इज इन सोशलिज्म दैट इक्वालिटी कैन फ्लोरिश. तो डेमोक्रेसी इक्वल सोसाइटी में पॉसिबल है और ये इक्वलिटी कहाँ फ्लोरिश हो सकती है? ओनली इन, इट कैन फ्लोरिश ओनली इन सोशलिज्म. सो फॉर नेहरू, डेमोक्रेसी, सोशलिज्म एंड इक्वालिटी constituted a perfect order. एक perfect order होता है as far as Nehru's vision was concerned. Democracy, socialism and equality. These three things were maintaining a perfect order as far as democracy is concerned. And for Nehru, democracy too was a way of life. Democracy too was a way of life. He considered democracy a best government. He considered himself safe within democracy. He considered democracy more than a form of government. It was a social organization. Democracy was a social organization that involved an equal and socialist kind of society. And for him, democracy was a way of life. So for him, democracy was a way of life. It implies people to live in harmony with one another. It implies people to live with one another in harmony, in peace, in order. It implies people to discuss, debate about their situations and found solutions to their problems. And as far as Nehru in general is concerned, thus democracy, we can say, according to him, is a method, it's a solution, it is a dialogue, a conversation, a demonstration, a debate, a persuasion. All those methods were involved in democratic way of conservation, coming to the decision. So for Nehru, democracy prescribed a way of life and also way as how one should live it, as how one should live it. So this was all about how Nehru saw democratic ideals, how he provided his political philosophy regarding democratic ideals, how he provided his political contribution as far as democracy is concerned. And what were his other contributions, I already told you. He had incredible contributions as far as Indian freedom struggle against Britishers were concerned. He had incredible contribution as far as national awareness for freedom was concerned. He had incredible contributions as far as his functions for the country, being the member of Indian National Congress, being the representative, being the president, chairman of Indian National Congress. And he served the country more than anybody else as far as prime minister portfolio is concerned, starting from 1946 as interim government prime minister, head of the government, then 1951 to 1964 till his death, being the first prime minister of country as well. And his vision on internationalism is also incredible and unanimous. As you know, he was the founder, he is the architect of Indian foreign policy. He was a believer in this thing. We had to raise against colonialism, we had to raise against imperialism. We had to stand by the nations suited for liberation against colonial forces, whether in Asia and Africa, against Britishers, against French, against Italians, against European colonialists. And as far as Nehru's international vision was concerned, he was one of the founding fathers of non-alignment movement. And Nehru too signed a historic agreement with one of the neighboring country, that is China, and that was Panchsheel Agreement signed on 29th of April 1954 between Nehru from India and Zhou Enlai from China. And Panchsheel was containing 5 things. And those very 5 things are crucial as far as Indian foreign policy is concerned. And after Nehru, we had to study about the thoughts of J.P. Narayanan. As far as J.P. Narayanan was concerned, he was one of the socialists. And let's begin with J.P. He also has a tremendous role, and more importantly, he had an incredible role during emergency of 1975. He was the leader of the opposition who were imprisoned. And there was emergency, constitutional emergency in 1975 by the government of Indira Gandhi, signed by Fakhruddin Ali Ahmad, who was then president. सो नॉन पार्टीसन डेमोक्रेसी का एक अच्छा एडवोकेट था, नॉन पार्टीसन डेमोक्रेसी का एक अच्छा एडवोकेट था जेपी नारायण। और जिस तरह मैंने परसों तिलक के बारे में बता दिया कि तिलक को लोग ज़्यादा लोकमान्य तिलक बोलते हैं, तो जो जेपी नारायणन है उसके लिए भी एक नाम है, दैट इज़ लोकनायक। He was mirror to 20th century India. He had gone through Marxian democratic socialism, Marxism, Gandhism, lately Sarvodaya, and finally Total Revolution of 1974. He was constituted as the radical youth leader between 1930 to 1940. The radical youth leader between 30 and 40s. He never joined Communist Party of India. He used Congress Socialist Party as the platform in 1936. तो कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी को उन्होंने कभी ज्वाइन नहीं किया, लेकिन प्लेटफॉर्म के तौर पे उन्होंने कांग्रेस सोशलिस्ट पार्टी को 1936 में यूज किया. What forms part of his Marxian phase in his Why Socialism. तो मार्क्सियन फेज उसका कब था? जब उसने कांग्रेस सोशलिस्ट पार्टी 1936 को एज अ प्लेटफॉर्म यूज किया, तो वहां से उसकी बेस बनती थी मार्क्सियन फेज. मार्क्सिज्म जो फेज है वहां से उसकी बेस बनती है वाई सोशलिज्म, जब उन्होंने अपना कंट्रीब्यूशन दिया। He was a believer of adult franchise on functional basis. Adult franchise on functional basis. और 1940 में ड्राफ्ट रेजोल्यूशन फॉर कांग्रेस सेशन एट रामगढ़ जब उन्होंने दिया, जो ड्राफ्ट रेजोल्यूशन था कांग्रेस सेशन ऑफ रामगढ़ इन 1940, दैट वाज नोन एज डेमोक्रेटिक सोशलिज्म। दैट वाज नोन एज डेमोक्रेटिक सोशलिज्म। और 1946 में उन्होंने एक आर्टिकल दिया, माय पिक्चर ऑफ सोशलिज्म। माय पिक्चर ऑफ सोशलिज्म जो उन्होंने एक आर्टिकल दिया 1946 में, दैट इंक्लूडेड cooperative farmers run by panchayat, cooperative farmers run by panchayat, large scale industries, small scale industries, and limited role of state, and limited role of state. तो माय पिक्चर ऑफ सोशलिज्म में उन्होंने ये अपने थॉट्स दिए, जिसमें कोऑपरेटिव फॉर्म्स रन बाय और कंट्रोल बाय पंचायत, लार्ज स्केल इंडस्ट्रीज, स्मॉल स्केल इंडस्ट्रीज, एंड लिमिटेड रोल ऑफ स्टेट। ही अपोजिट सोशलिस्ट रशियन मॉडल। तो सोशलिस्ट जो रशियन मॉडल था उसको बिल्कुल उन्होंने अपोज किया था, डिस्पाइट बीइंग द मार्क्सिस्ट। In 1940s में he got inspired by Gandhism। तो गांधीज्म से वो इंस्पायर होकर उन्होंने वेलफेयर ऑफ ऑल, वेलफेयर ऑफ द वीकर के बारे में बात की, सर्वोदया की उन्होंने बात की, इगैलिटेरियन कम्यून ऑफ सिटीजन्स की उन्होंने बात की, पंचायत राज या स्वराज फ्रॉम बिलो। तो पंचायत राज की उन्होंने बात की या स्वराज फ्रॉम बिलो। जो पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ पीपल है उस पर उन्होंने ज्यादा बिलीव किया। He led great stress or reliance on लोकनीति, that is politics of people, लोक शक्ति, power of people। तो politics of people, that is लोकनीति, power of people, that is लोक शक्ति, against राजनीति, that is power politics, against राज शक्ति, that is state power। तो state power और politics, power politics के अगेंस्ट उन्होंने किसको ज्यादा सपोर्ट किया और सिट्रस दिया? पावर ऑफ पीपल एंड पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ पीपल। तो लोकनीति एंड लोक शक्ति पे उन्होंने ज्यादा रिलाई किया, अगेंस्ट राज शक्ति एंड राजनीति। तो राजनीति दैट इज पावर पॉलिटिक्स, राज शक्ति स्टेट पावर। इन टू फोर्सेस के अगेंस्ट उसने ज्यादा किस पे रिलाई किया? लोक शक्ति दैट इज पावर ऑफ पीपल एंड लोकनीति दैट इज पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ पीपल। 1942 में एक स्पॉन्टेनियस मास अपसर्ज होती है when entire leadership was imprisoned। उस दौरान उन्होंने बड़ा रोल प्ले किया था। 1954 में उन्होंने कट ऑफ किया अपना जो भी कॉन्टैक्ट था, कट ऑफ हिज पार्टी पॉलिटिक्स, जब उन्होंने ज्वाइन किया था किसको? आचार्य विनोबा भावे को। आचार्य विनोबा भावे को वो 1954 में ज्वाइन करते हैं, जब वो पार्टी पॉलिटिक्स से अपने सभी कॉन्टैक्ट्स मुनक़ता करता है। तो वो ज्वाइन करता है आचार्य विनोबा भावे को 1954 में। और उसके बाद वो बुदान क्या होता है? वॉलंटरी लैंड डिवोशन, वॉलंटरी लैंड डोनेशन टू लैंडलेस। जो लैंडलेस थे उनको जमीन देना, तो वॉलंटरी लैंड डोनेशन टू लैंडलेस पीपल। तो बुदान उन्होंने की 1954 के बाद, जब उन्होंने पार्टी पॉलिटिक्स से मुनक़ता हो गए, ताल्लुकी का इजहार किया, विनोबा भावे को ज्वाइन किया बुदान मूवमेंट में उन्होंने। तो वॉलंटरी लैंड डोनेशन उन्होंने की लैंडलेस पीपल को। 1966 और 1977 के दौरान, 1966 और 1967 के दौरान, जब प्लानिंग कमीशन के दौरान प्लान हॉलीडे भी हो रही थी उसके अराउंड, तो वहां पर दूसरी साइड से बिहार फेमाइन भी था एंड मैस रिलीफ ऑपरेशन भी था। तो बिहार फेमाइन के दौरान उन्होंने मैस रिलीफ ऑपरेशन चलाया ड्यूरिंग 1966 एंड 67। एंड ड्यूरिंग 1970s he started movement in Bihar against corruption. He awared students whether in Gujarat, in Bihar, against the corrupt administrative practices। तो बिहार मूवमेंट उन्होंने स्टार्ट की अगेंस्ट करप्शन 1970s में। ड्यूरिंग दिस टाइम ही फॉलोड गांधीज संपूर्ण क्रांति। तो गांधी का जो प्रोग्राम था संपूर्ण क्रांति, टोटल रिवोल्यूशन को उन्होंने फॉलो किया 1970s के दौरान, जब उन्होंने करप्शन के खिलाफ बिहार में मूवमेंट स्टार्ट किया। संपूर्ण क्रांति उन्होंने ज्वाइन की। लेकिन यहाँ पर उन्होंने मार्क्सिस्ट आइडियोलॉजीज के डायलेक्टिकल मटेरियलिज्म को उन्होंने क्रिटिसाइज किया, और उन्होंने जो टोटल रिवोल्यूशन को फॉलो किया, ही यूज्ड दिस वेरी टोटल रिवोल्यूशन फर्स्ट टाइम इन ब्रिटिश मैगजीन द टाइम्स इन 1969। तो अगर ये पूछा जाएगा कि जेपी नारायण ने सबसे पहले टोटल रिवोल्यूशन कब यूज किया, तो 1969 में यूज किया। और कहाँ यूज किया? एक ब्रिटिश मैगजीन में, द टाइम्स ब्रिटिश मैगजीन है। और द टाइम्स इस ब्रिटिश मैगजीन में 1969 में फर्स्ट टाइम जेपी नारायणन ने टोटल रिवोल्यूशन वर्ड यूज किया। ब्रिटिश मैगजीन द टाइम्स में 1969। इसके अलावा इन्होंने राइट टू वर्क जो है इसको इन्होंने बोला इंटीग्रल पार्ट ऑफ हिज टोटल रिवोल्यूशन। तो राइट टू वर्क वाज एन इंटीग्रल पार्ट ऑफ हिज टोटल रिवोल्यूशन। His vision was free, progressive and Gandhian India. His vision was free, progressive and Gandhian India. और उन्होंने जो टोटल रिवोल्यूशन में बोला था संपूर्ण क्रांति जो थी, जो उन्होंने टाइम्स मैगजीन में यूज किया टोटल रिवोल्यूशन वर्ड 1969 में। टोटल रिवोल्यूशन में 7 रिवोल्यूशंस आते थे। कितने? 7। सोशल, इकोनॉमिक, पॉलिटिकल, कल्चरल, आइडियोलॉजिकल एंड इंटेलेक्चुअल, एजुकेशनल और स्पिरिचुअल। सोशियो इकोनॉमिक, पॉलिटिकल, कल्चरल, आइडियोलॉजिकल एंड इंटेलेक्चुअल हो गए 5, एजुकेशनल एंड स्पिरिचुअल। तो ये 7 रिवोल्यूशंस का उन्होंने टोटल रिवोल्यूशन में जिक्र किया। और जो टोटल रिवोल्यूशन है इनको जेपी नारायणन ने परमानेंट रिवोल्यूशन का नाम दिया, परमानेंट रिवोल्यूशन। और इन्होंने इस बात को सपोर्ट किया कि पीपल्स कमिटीज एट द ग्रास रूट लेवल टू कंट्रोल करप्शन। पीपल्स कमिटीज एट द ग्रास रूट लेवल, एट द लोअर लेवल होनी चाहिए टू कॉम्बैट करप्शन, टू कंट्रोल करप्शन, टू इरेडिकेट करप्शन। और अंत्योदया का उन्होंने बोला था, अंत्योदया जो है दैट इज अपलिफ्टमेंट ऑफ द लास्ट मैन, upliftment of the weaker, upliftment of the last man. And his ideal state in 1977. Ideal state in 1977 का इन्होंने जो concept दिया, in which every individual resource is dedicated to serving the weak community. Every individual or resource is dedicated to the well-being and serving of the weak community, dedicated to Antyodaya, to the well-being of the least and the weakest, to the well-being of the least and the weakest. तो ये वो कंट्रीब्यूशंस है जो जेपी नारायणन ने प्ले किए हैं, रोल किया, जो सिग्निफिकेंट रोल उन्होंने प्ले किया है, वो कंट्रीब्यूशंस हैं। तो जहाँ से उन्होंने स्टार्ट किया, जैसे उन्होंने इनिशियल स्टेज में बीइंग अ मार्क्सिस्ट डिवोटेड हिमसेल्फ टू मार्क्सियन फिलॉसफी, फिर लेटर ऑन वो फॉलोअर बना गांधीज्म का, और उसके बाद 1954 में पार्टी पॉलिटिक्स से दूर होके वो विनोबा भावे को भूदान मूवमेंट में वो चले जाते हैं, बड़ा सपोर्टर बनता है वो डेमोक्रेसी का और फेवर करता है डेमोक्रेटिक इंस्टीट्यूशंस का। और उसके लिए डेमोक्रेसी क्या थी? अ क्रीड, अ वे ऑफ लाइफ, both as a creed as well as a way of life. He advocated individual freedom को उन्होंने फेवर किया। ट्रुथ और नॉन वायलेंस को उन्होंने डेमोक्रेसी में उसने ये बता दिया कि people should follow non-violence and they should be ready to face the repercussions, to face exploitation, to face high-handedness, to face oppressions with courage and boldness. लेकिन नॉन वायलेंस पे वो बिलीव करनी चाहिए और उनकी जो बेस होनी चाहिए वो ट्रुथ पे होनी चाहिए। और जहां तक पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी की बात है, ही हैड अ फर्म बिलीवर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी। और उसने ये बता दिया जब पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी होगी, इट कैन एस्टैब्लिश लिंक्स एंड कोऑर्डिनेट बिटवीन इंडस्ट्री एंड एग्रीकल्चर ऑन वन साइड एंड अर्बन एक्टिविटीज ऑन द अदर। तो पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी में पॉसिबल है कि states उसने किया कि its state is that it can establish links and coordinate between industry and agriculture on one hand and urban activities on the other. तो पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी में बिलीव कर रहा था, लेकिन पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी क्या होनी चाहिए? ये पार्टीलेस डेमोक्रेसी होनी चाहिए। He believed in partyless democracy in India. Why? Because he suggested that in each village there should be a gram mandal or a conference. In each village there should be a gram mandal or a conference consisting of elected representatives of the village, at least one from each family. So that is gram mandal, that is conference consisting of elected representatives of the village with one member from every family of a village. And such a mandal, such a conference should meet monthly. It should meet monthly to decide all the pending issues of the village. And there should be, so hence he said, there should be no need and necessity of electing representatives to speak on behalf of the people. तो किसी बड़े रिप्रेजेंटेटिव की हमें जरूरत नहीं है जो on the behalf of the people speak करेगा, but the people themselves should express their own feelings and viewpoints. लोग खुद अपना viewpoint देंगे। Each mandal would become an electoral college. इस मंडल में जो गाँव की है मंथली ये मीट करती है, हर एक घराने से एक एक बंदा है, तो ये एक तरीके से एक इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज बन जाएगा जो आगे रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स को डिसाइड करेगा और भेजेगा। और जहां तक बात है रिकंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ द इंडियन पॉलिटी, ही ट्राइड टू रिकंस्ट्रक्ट द इंडियन पॉलिटी बाय ट्राइंग टू रिमूव द बैड एविल्स ऑफ इंडियन डेमोक्रेसी लाइक करप्शन, expensive elections, centralization of authority, partisanship attitude of political bodies. He also recommended mass mobilization for active participation in democratic process. तो mass mobilization में वो believe करता था, but with two qualities, that is truth and non-violence. And he was a firm believer in this thing to check the authoritarian domination at time to time and try to involve all the adults in the political system, promotion of social coordination, collaboration, formation of Shanti Sena, administrative efficiency should be there. So these were the all important things as far his ideals were concerned regarding the reconstruction of Indian polity were concerned. And as far as J.P. Narayana's idea on socialism were concerned, he was the greatest authority on socialism. And he was regarded as the greatest authority on socialism by Mahatma Gandhi. He got influenced by American, by British socialists. He regarded socialism as the theory of socio-economic reconstruction. सोशियो-इकोनॉमिक रिकंस्ट्रक्शन के लिए उन्होंने सोशलिज्म को हाईलाइट किया है और सोशलिज्म के रिलेटेड उसको ग्रेट इंडियन अथॉरिटी ऑन सोशलिज्म का लक़ब मिला है बाय महात्मा गांधी। और उन्होंने बता दिया, इफ देयर विल बी इनइक्वालिटीज इन द इकोनॉमिक एंड सोशल स्फीयर्स, अगर वहां इनइक्वालिटीज होंगी इकोनॉमिक और सोशल स्फीयर्स में, दैट विल रिजल्ट इन proportionate ownership and control of the means of production. तो ये सोशो इकोनॉमिक इक्वालिटी होनी चाहिए, वहां इनइक्वालिटी नहीं होनी चाहिए। He believed in social and economic equality and not in psychological standardization or mechanized और मैकेनिकल यूनिफॉर्मिटी। तो वो बिलीव करता था, जैसे उनका जो सोशलिज्म का कॉन्सेप्ट आता था कि वो सोशलिज्म को बिलीव करता था जब वहाँ सोशल इकोनॉमी होगी, सोशल इक्वालिटी होगी और सोशल इक्वालिटी के साथ साथ इकोनॉमिक इक्वालिटी भी होगी। और इक्वल, चाहे इक्वालिटी इकोनॉमिक फील्ड में हो या सोशल फील्ड में हो, उनसे पहले जो प्रायोरिटी है, जिस तरह नेहरू ने बोला था, पॉलिटिकल इक्वालिटी। तो यहाँ पर भी पॉलिटिकल इक्वालिटी, सोशल इक्वालिटी एंड इकोनॉमिक इक्वालिटी की वो बात करता है। क्योंकि सोशलिज्म के बारे में नेहरू ने, गांधी ने इसको क्यों एक स्ट्रॉन्ग एडवोकेट माना था, बिकॉज सोशलिज्म अकॉर्डिंग टू जेपी वाज अ थ्योरी एंड टेक्निक ऑफ वाइड स्प्रेड प्लानिंग। एक वाइड स्प्रेड प्लानिंग की ये थ्योरी है, बड़ी एक अच्छी इनक्रेडिबल कंट्रीब्यूशन है। इट इन्वॉल्व्स अ टेक्निकल रिकंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ द टोटल एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ सोसाइटी। तो टेक्निकल रिकंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ द टोटल एस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ द सोसाइटी। और जो सोशलिज्म है, इट विल एम एट हार्मोनियस एंड वेल प्लान्ड बैलेंस्ड ग्रोथ ऑफ द होल सोसाइटी। जो सोशलिज्म है, इट विल एम एट हार्मोनियस एंड वेल प्लान्ड बैलेंस्ड ग्रोथ ऑफ द सोसाइटी। तो उसकी सोशलिज्म में छुपा है economic as well as social equality, and this is possible only when there is political equality. और none of the जो ये तीन फील्ड्स है, चाहे इकोनॉमिक हो, सोशल हो या पॉलिटिकल हो, इन तीनों में क्या जरूरी है? इन तीनों में जरूरी है, तीनों सेक्टर्स में इक्वलिटी का होना जरूरी है। इसके अलावा जो उन्होंने भूदान मूवमेंट चलाई है 1954 में आचार्य विनोबा भावे के साथ, टू डिवोट लैंड्स टू द लैंडलेस। इसके अलावा उन्होंने सर्वोदय में उन्होंने बोला था, वेलफेयर ऑफ ईच एंड एवरीवन इन एवरी एंड ईच फील्ड ऑफ ह्यूमन एक्टिविटी। और दान, जो दान इन्होंने दिए हैं, जिसमें 5 दान आते हैं, तो भूदान हो गया जिसमें वो लैंड डिनोट करते थे, डिवोट करते थे। जो उन्होंने दान दिए हैं, बुद्धिदान इसमें आता है, श्रमदान आता है, प्रेमदान आता है, ग्रामदान आता है, सदादान आता है। उसके जो 5 दान थे, बुद्धिदान, श्रमदान, प्रेमदान, ग्रामदान, सदादान। बुद्धिदान, श्रमदान, प्रेमदान, ग्रामदान, सदादान। और 1974 में जो टोटल रेवोल्यूशन जो उन्होंने बताया था, जो मैंने बताया कौन कौन से आइडियाज के रेवोल्यूशन थे, उनका एम क्या था? सेक्युलर डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम। एक तो सेक्युलर डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम होना चाहिए, दूसरा करप्शन फ्री इलेक्शंस होने चाहिए, और तीसरा मिक्स्ड इकोनॉमी। सेक्युलर डेमोक्रेटिक सिस्टम, करप्शन फ्री इलेक्शंस एंड मिक्स्ड इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम होना चाहिए। तो लोकनायक उसको बोला जाता था। 1902 में इसका जन्म हुआ था। कांग्रेस सोशलिस्ट पार्टी से इसका ताल्लुक रहा है और इसके जो आइडियाज रहे हैं, वाई सोशलिज्म या डेमोक्रेटिक सोशलिज्म, आवर आइडियल एंड आवर मेथड, टुवर्ड्स अ न्यू सोसाइटी में वो क्या बोलता है? अ प्ली फॉर रिकंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ इंडियन पॉलिटी, जो मैंने बता दिया, रिकंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ इंडियन पॉलिटी। फ्रॉम सोशलिज्म टू सर्वोदया, अ पिक्चर ऑफ सर्वोदया सोशल ऑर्डर, सोशलिज्म, सर्वोदया एंड डेमोक्रेसी, प्रेजेंटेरी टुवर्ड्स टोटल रिवोल्यूशन। और इसके अलावा इन्होंने एक एरिस्टोटल का यहाँ पॉइंट बोला है, मैन इज अ पॉलिटिकल एनिमल, और पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी में वो बिलीव करता था। So that was all about the contributions on the part of JP Narayanan and Jawaharlal Nehru, and next time we will discuss other philosophers as well.